rapper and get into making rap music.
My music is freedom rather than something which is detained or locked up.
They've put me more out of control of myself because I'm so out of it from all their fucking drugs.
And meet award-winning Russell Birkin.
By telling a story, you're taking someone on a journey or taking them to another place.
Detained, injected, medicated. Fucking, I wouldn't even want to put my worst enemy through all that.
If you're going to go to a dark place, then hopefully you can go to a happy place.
Sonic boom as grey matter enters the room without telling any more fixed. I'm recording from the chambers of the
The thing that grabbed me was, the obscure sound. Sort of reminded me back when I was back in '98 when I started getting into Wu-Tang, listening to that obscure sound.
He kind of surprised us, I guess, with how innovative and zany and completely off the wall his rhymes were.
I'm Space G, a pioneer master. I plaster caster faster than a Rastafarian looking like a lost terrestrian.
It's kind of like crazy clown hip hop.
Space G actually stands for the gravity in space, and also the G also stands for grey matter, as in like the brain, what you think with.
Space G's a pretty generally happy sort of guy, I reckon, pretty energetic. Obviously there's a dark side to Space G, which is the crazy side, but all the times I've met Space G, he's been pretty chill, had his act together. Sort of flow, because you're actually covering a lot of topics there, mate, and you're leaving a little bit of air there.
Structure.
Yeah. So I'm just going to find, and then I'll go to the next chorus, I reckon, the same thing.
You got to be amongst it to get recognised, and to get recognised, to be amongst it, you got to do the work.
You can't beat the feeling of when you've actually nailed a track. The sounds in it, the music, the body of it is actually spot on to how you want to sink your lyrics into. I'm instilling fear in your ear with the gear that I smeared a G sloshed on beer to know who goes here. I got a weighty shield, dare to meet me upon the battlefield. Gamble me for cheddar? Huh, I'll pump 15 into your lungs out of my Beretta. Dropping all to the deck like bass from heck. Get me respect when I have you.
When I was actually over in the country living and I was going to school, that's where I sort of first started the rhyme, because I was writing poems, and I thought it was a bit sissy, writing poems. So I decided if anyone asked, I'd tell them I'm writing rap music. Sometimes you get the odd person who says, it makes no sense to me. But then you say, well, what about you and you? And they're like, it makes sense to us.
Like a Shakespearean tragic, energy set to flow like electrical static. My condition's schizoid and manic, leave competition in awe and a state of panic. I'm in the city but from the sticks. They can't fence me in, only jail me with bricks. I'm using my brain just for kicks. I remove the sane with all kinds of tricks.
He would give me tapes to listen to, and I would comment on them and give them back to him.
Space G, when I stood on the mic, he's out of control.
I mean, I've been rapping probably as long, if not longer, than Titch. There's that little friction there between us and Titch, because we're trying to say that our music's better than Titch's, and Titch is saying his is better than ours. And
I used to hang out with his crew and go over there quite a bit because I knew a few people over there, and in particular him, he was one that was always sort of giving me a hard time.
Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of a rivalry among us guys.
I got the control brain stuck up in a mainframe. Mission to accept, just so niggas can get checked. I do it every day just to float it in the sky. Wild off the wall like the feeling to beat the fly.
The style, I suppose I'd sort of call it, it's very 80s. He generally likes the old school, the old school synth and the old school drum machine, and then has his narrative and his stories rapping over the top of that. Likes to get a little bit experimental and crazy, I suppose. That's the Space G sort of sound, really, isn't it?
When I was on my 3-day hallucination trip, I saw all the drawings I'd ever drawn of violent drawings of people with guns or spears or whatever, weapons, all pointing them at me, drawn in lead pencil on
bedroom floorboards, wood grain floorboards at my mate's house.
When you see me at the moment, I'm all groggy and I'm all out of it because I'm being medicated. It doesn't allow me to express myself creatively. It acts as a suppressant rather than letting me cut loose. It's actually technically named schizoaffective bipolar manic disorder.
You lay down in it, you close the lid, it pressurizes, you turn it on, and all this green light pops up through pinholes.
It's been explained as in like suffering delusional hearing of voices and seeing things which aren't there.
I mean, can you imagine being forcibly detained against your will and made to take medications and injected with medications for 48 days with nothing to do except sit in your room or watch television or have a cigarette? I've been through hell and back. Also, they can be satisfied that I am in control of myself when in actual fact they've put me more out of control of myself because I'm so out of it from all their fucking drugs.
I think he likes to tell a story. He likes that sort of space journey or the voyage, I suppose, of for him, I suppose it's self-discovery, really, isn't it?
Well, the highs are good. And I generally think during those times is when I'm actually getting motivated again to actually write more lyrics, because you're not depressed and trying to go out there and just drink yourself into bottles, you know, or drink yourself under the table and that. Like, you can actually just sit around and just have the coffee and no alcohol or whatever, you know. It makes you actually think, well, it was worth going through the low times.
The first album, I want it to have a real feel and a real sound of what I'm about. I want to make sure that every single song on it I'm happy with before I release it. Anyone coming and picking up an album, you know, they're going to be blown away by it. If I can achieve that, then I'll be happy because I'll get nothing but positive feedback.
Man, this all sounds good, and then when it comes in, while we try to put that short little bit in, it just doesn't work. Because it sounds like it's out of key on the higher note, just that small bit.
For deep in the mist where we meet, etched in the jungle on the street, moving through the smoke in the heat, we dance in our minds on our feet.
Oh, oh, whoa, oh, oh, whoa, oh, oh, whoa, the right stuff.
How's that? I mean, I am a space G.
Teacher came over to Sean's flat when we were there and he wanted to come inside. We said, look mate, we don't want you inside, you know, we're busy, we're doing stuff and that. Yeah, he had nothing to do, so he just stayed there hanging around the flat, and we told him to go away and fuck off, and he wouldn't. Chased him upstairs, he ran away from me, we ran upstairs, and he's like having a go at us, like cursing us from up on top of the balcony.
He probably identified that I was someone that if he did pick on and give a lot of shit to, that I wasn't going to do anything back.
And then when I did catch up with him, I slapped him in the head a few times, said fuck off.
And he just spat on me.
He grabbed me by the shirt and almost pushed me over the fence.
I do recall that I had been drinking as well.
Elbowed him across the head, and then he grabbed me and he pushed me backwards, and I went backwards through the fence behind me, corrugated iron fence, and he landed on top of me and fucking jumped on my head.
He was down on the ground and I was stomping on his head, and apparently one of the girls who had just seen this came over and just slapped me right across the face, and I'm like, shit, that was harder than any of Russell's punches.
I had a marijuana plant growing in a pot, and Zoe picked it up, smashed it across Titch's head while he was on top of me, and that's about where the fight broke up.
He knows that day he received probably his fair share and fair serve of what he got, because to this day when I see him, he's more than polite and he treats me with respect, and I think the key word is respect.
We're crushing up match heads. We're gonna make a rocket. Just a little tinsy-wincy rocket. Solid state boosted rocket. Blow your fingertip off.
Rather than just rap, rhyme, hip hop, we've also got, you know, the visual arts side of things, yeah. Art is a very good therapy for me. It's a good way to release any frustration and stress and anxiety. Some people sit there in an office and chew on a pencil when they're frustrated from doing sums. Me, when I'm frustrated from like not having anything to do or I'm bored, or I sit down and I draw like pictures of multiple levels of, like, you know, not just what's above the ground in buildings, but what's below the ground as well.
Because he's a bit of an outsider and he just does what he does naturally. He's not necessarily trying to conform to a market with his visual art, he just does it because he needs to. So I think his art's born out of necessity, which I think is great. But when people are doing it out of a love or natural instinct, there's a quality there. Even if it's raw and rough and even unskilled at times or unconventional, there's something very special there, a special quality. And you can't learn that or teach that, that's just natural.
That's the planet Earth, there's the sun, there's the moon, there's a space station, and there's Black Knight Space Station as well, with a couple other ones in there for satellites.
The thing with the outsiders is that they have the freedom to do whatever they like because they have no pressure from anyone. And you'll see people doing the same stuff over and over again, but from time to time you see people, you know, just moving in different directions and starting new ways of expressing themselves.
I've got a desk where I've drawn the main frame body of scribbles that I work off. With a little child squatting down, putting his hand out. Behind him, when he's older, coming back to the same spot where he was at the edge of the pond, putting his hand in the water. It's just something which I started doing because I thought, oh, just interesting and fascinating to sit there and draw like that. It's a sort of appeal which makes me want to continue to do stuff like this, even though, you know, a friend or a girlfriend might not even understand what I'm doing. They think I'm just wasting time on scribbles, when in actual fact to me it's a lot more than just scribbles. Yeah, Titch has gone ahead and he got himself a record deal with Hard Rush Records in Brisbane.
Got hit by the glamour, hydroglyph was a split. You be nothing but a scammer.
And you know, I hope he does good with his record. Yeah. But I hope my record does better. Yeah, I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to stop doing art. You know, I love all different kinds of mediums of art, including the music and the lyrics, which I consider art as well. It's starting to sound good, and it's really getting a body to it now. So we're actually getting a bit scared. We might have to like staple or nail the CD down because it might grow legs and just run away at the rate it's going.
I step up to the platform, then transform into a phantom and disappear like I wasn't here. 2009's the year, hooked on benches. I kick the fucking closet door off its hinges. I let words drip from my lips. Step with me and swing your hips. Shake your bootylicious booty, come with me. Step with me, swing your hips, booty for free. Come on now, baby, let me see you strut. Come on, party people, put your hands up. Feel the spinal jerk and beat, invade your feet to this fresh flow and rap clean fresh off the street. It's great matter, high year, I'm here to shatter platinum. First I gotta ran up all these teens chewing gum. Word on the streets, this shit is hot. When shit's hot, they put that mother on the microphone spot. So here I am, if you can bear me. God asked if I like punk rock, fool, I say barely. Shake your bootylicious booty, come with me. Step with me, swing your hips and booty for free. Come on now, baby, let me see you strut. Come on, party people, put your hands up.